What's going on, everybody? I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, and it is a hell of a day to talk ball. Week 7 Sunday is in the books. It was a long one. It was a fun one. A lot of ups and downs. We got a ton to get into. We've got Chris Allen joining later to recap everything. But before we do that, we have to talk through Sunday Night Football. A little bit of a kind of a sleepy Sunday night game, if we're being honest. 49ers 20, Falcons 10. I don't want to say that, though, and leave out a great performance from the 49ers defense in this one. Got to admit, didn't see this one coming. Backs against the wall. They got all kinds of injuries at every level. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, the whole deal. You know, even Upton Stout, who's played really good nickelback for them. I thought this would be a situation where the 49ers defense kind of got rocked around by a Falcons offense that's played really 2 games back-to-back, sort of, obviously the game before the bye, game after the bye. Thought the Falcons would have the advantage offensively in this one. They did not. The 49ers defense showed up, held Bijan Robinson to under 3 yards per carry. Gotta be the worst rushing performance of Bijan's season so far. We'll get into the Falcons here in just a second, but let's stick on the San Francisco 49ers. Really, like I said, the story of the game is the defense. Maybe the story of the game is them overcoming another injury. Center position, Jake Brendel goes down. It's just every single week. You got to have one major 49ers player leave with an injury every single week. I guess that's just like the laws of the position, or the laws of the NFL right now. The one guy who's not leaving with any injuries, though, Christian McCaffrey. Full-on freak show, vintage RB1 performance from Christian McCaffrey. His .25 EPA per rush in this game, easily his best performance of the season. I feel like sometimes when people cite EPA, myself included, it's like, okay, .25, what the hell does that mean? Let me just read you off the other results so far this season so you know what I'm talking about in terms of the difference here. From week 1 to week 6, minus 2.9, 0.06, minus 4.1, minus 2.8, minus 3.1, minus 0.12. You see where I'm going with this? A lot of negatives, a lot of losing points. Giving the ball to Christian McCaffrey as a rusher was a losing proposition through the first 6 weeks of the season. Sure as hell didn't feel that way tonight. I don't think the first defender brought down, let me a little next gen Matt stats on this one. The first defender brought down Christian McCaffrey twice in this whole game all night. Well, twice. That's the official count per my eyeballs. 24 rush attempts for 129 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, long run of 15 yards. So there's no big run here boosting these. This was just steady, pound it game from Christian McCaffrey on the ground, which was not to be outdone by what he did as a receiver. 7 catches, 72 yards, 8 targets here, led the team in all of those categories. I mean, shoot, Mac Jones threw for 152 yards in this game. 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, 1 sack taken, and most of that went to Christian McCaffrey. This was despite the fact George Kittle came back in this game. George Kittle was a near full-time player, ran a route on 82% of the dropbacks, but no catches in this game. 2 targets, 0 catches for George Kittle. It was the Christian McCaffrey show. I have to imagine that Kyle Shanahan, deep down inside, was like, hey, my run game is cooking for the first time all year. We are just going to get after this thing. And I think this is Falcons defense has been an interesting one, right? I feel like after last week, I was pretty quick to crown them because I had been skeptical of this unit, but I thought they were playing fast. I thought they were really overwhelming teams, especially Buffalo in their own building last week. And maybe we got to look at some home road splits for this Falcons team. That's something I just want to put in the back of my brain for right now. I don't have a fully fleshed out take on this, but I could see some ways where this defense and frankly this offense, especially in the passing game, are a little bit home road sensitive. But like I said, put a pin in that. I haven't fully fleshed that out yet. Haven't fully researched it. I'm certainly not doing it at 11:30 at night. But I think that last week against Buffalo in particular, they really had that advantage of just being the faster team, really overwhelming you up front with a lot of blitzes. This was sort of when Nate, Charles, and I talked about the Falcons and their bet on those rookie edge rushers at the at the live NFL draft show for Yahoo that we did this year. They're light. They're very light across the board. They're kind of a smaller team, which, again, when you're able to play fast and physical and fly around, you can overwhelm a team. But when another team like the San Francisco 49ers comes in here and says, hey, we're just going to play power football and we're going to run it down your throat. I mean, shoot, even Brian Robinson had 9 carries for 36 yards in this game. He was even able to get into the mix here. Like you come in here and you put 33 carries in the hands of your top 2 running backs and you're just able to just move the ball consistently down the football field. That is at least on my radar in terms of this Falcons defense. Great to see for McCaffrey. You hope this is just kind of, we're able to build off this performance going forward, because from a fantasy standpoint, McCaffrey had been giving you top level wide receiver production and kind of whatever rushing production. If he's able to start having more performances like this from a ground game perspective, yeah, we're talking about he's going to compete with Jonathan Taylor, Puka Nacua when he's healthy, in terms of being the best players in fantasy. Shoot, the guy on the other side, Bijan Robinson, had been in that category too. So great to see this from McCaffrey. You hope it can continue. The rest of the 49ers offense, I mean, there's just really not that much to say. Juwan Jennings had a pass clank off his hands. That's the interception that Mac Jones threw. It happens, right? Jennings has had kind of a very, very strange season. We know this 49ers team is not fully healthy yet. They're still hoping to get Ricky Pearsall back soon. Brandon Ayuk still not available yet. Of course, at some point, hopefully they're closer to full strength, but kind of banged if you started Kendrick Bourne in this one. Kendrick Bourne was still pretty close to a full-time player, ran a route on 79% of the dropbacks, which was 3rd on the team behind Jennings and Kittle, and just ahead of Christian McCaffrey for 4th. But really, it was just, this was a run game situation. You're not going to have a bunch of players popping off for you in fantasy when Mac Jones throws for 152 yards and 72 of those go to the running back. So great performance from Christian McCaffrey, absolutely vintage performance from him. You love to see it. On the Falcons side of things, not as nice here. Not as nice at all. Again, you come in here and you run for under 3 yards per carry. It's just not going to be great. And I agree so strongly with this tweet we're showing from Josh Norris. The Falcons just make so little sense this season. They win 22-6 over the Vikings, then they lose 3-0 to the Panthers. They bounce back for great wins over the Commanders and the Bills, and now they lose 20-10. And it does just feel like inconsistency, coaching inconsistency in particular, week to week. I said this at the end of the game, and I'm sure I am oversimplifying this. I'm confident that this is stupid analysis, but I feel it anyways, and I'm going to say it anyways. It just seems like sometimes every few weeks, this Falcons team forgets that how good their passing game can be, how smooth it runs when they just work the whole thing through the Drake London layup targets. And I don't know if that's a Penix issue where he doesn't love to consistently work over the middle of the field. I don't know if that is a Zach Robinson issue where so much of this offense is supposed to be oriented over the middle of the field, but you have a quarterback who's not all that willing there. Just that weirdness pops up probably every 3 games or so, which is not good. That's not good when you're supposed to be this contending team, when you have a lot of talent on that side of the ball. I mean, shoot, even Kyle Pitts in this game really flashed. Kyle Pitts, you gotta hand it to Kyle Pitts. He's played good football this year. He's looked so much better. 10 targets in this game, 7 catches, 62 yards, made some big boy receptions down the field. And he's improved in terms of being like a true Y tight end, like an inline guy that they can play and it's no longer humiliating, So that's great to see for the Atlanta Falcons. But then you leave the game feeling like that was another player that wasn't really fully maximized. Darnell Mooney comes back in this game, and I know he was kind of efficient on his targets, but then it also feels like there's a lot of plays left on the field. I don't know. Darnell Mooney's having a weird season as well. Drake London's target share in 3 games with Darnell Mooney injured / inactive, 42%, according to our buddy John Daigle here. London in 3 games with Mooney, 22.3%. Guess which ones are their best games, by the way? Guess which games the Atlanta Falcons offense looks the best? This is the thing that kind of drives me crazy with these sort of splits and stuff is like, yeah, I agree. Like Drake London obviously is not as productive when Darnell Mooney's not in the mix, just like the same way that George Pickens pops off and is a top 5 fantasy receiver, and then he's a good but not crazy productive player when CeeDee Lamb is back. And obviously there's worlds of difference between all these players. Not all things are equal. But yeah, when you have two clear-cut starters at your wide receiver position, not a lot of depth, which this team does not have a lot of depth at the wide receiver position. Neither does Dallas, really. All apologies made to the Flournoy boys here, the Ryan Flournoy fans. But when you don't have a lot of depth there, your targets are going to get funneled those top two receivers when one of them misses. And I get that. But then when Mooney comes back, it feels like they're trying to hit those deep shots to him. He's not consistently hitting them. And then Drake London goes long stretches where he's not getting these layups in here. And like I said, I totally acknowledge, and I'm probably oversimplifying this, but it feels like something that consistently happens with this team. And I don't really know what to do with that. Again, I don't know if that's a Penix issue. I don't know if it is a coaching issue with Zach Robinson, but it feels like this is a thing that has happened not just this year. It goes back to last season. And then you watch Drake London be a high volume player and you see the results are great. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me in terms of why that happens, but it is what it is. It seems to happen every few games, but that's the wide receiver position. Also, stuff happens. Okay. There's going to be slow games for all of these players, but I think this is less of a fantasy scoring thing and more of it's on my radar in terms of the Falcons team overall. Another great shout, though, to Bijan Robinson, who was, I know 14 for 40 as a receiver doesn't get you, jumping out of your seat, but has a great game as a receiver. They're doing so much to weaponize him in terms of moving him across the formation. Like, he really actually is playing some slot receiver, 17.4% snaps out wide in this game, 19.6 as a slot receiver, the rest 63% in the backfield. They're actually moving him around and getting him some real intentional usage at some of these spots, and also using him to kind of be eye candy to open things up for other receivers. Those plays, again, like tonight, weren't always hit, didn't always get there. Penix kind of everything needs to be a little faster with Penix sometimes, including that fourth down play where it gets broken up by the backup nickel, whose name I'm forgetting right now, but it gets broken up before Drake London can get to it. It's like that ball's got to come out. So some of those plays, though, are set up because Bijan Robinson is this nice eye candy option for them, in addition to just being, hey, screen, get it out to him. He's going to get you a few yards, and we're moving down the football field. So Bijan's still an incredible player, one of the best options in fantasy right now. I do want to note this team has a great matchup next week in terms of the run game. And Tyler Algier is somebody that you probably want to pick up and park at the end of your bench and maybe consider as a flex next week in that matchup. But he also picked up a little bit of an injury late in the game. So just keep an eye on that, monitor that. We'll obviously update you on that throughout the week.